So my name is Dylan Anderson. I worked on the front end side of things for TechFoul.
My name's Luke Hackett. I did all the back end development for the project TechFoul.
And my name, where's the drum roll? Come on. Thank you. Is Hamish Ross. I worked on the back end and the front end as well. So I was sort of like the in-between kind of guy. And what we present to you today is TechFoul, a simple way of analysing head-to-head matches in Dota 2.
Now, how we came up with the name is really stemmed from wanting to bring our projects not only because what it's about is about sporting sort of area, we wanted to also make it incorporate with tech and the tech industry. So TechFoul is probably one of the worst things you can get on a basketball court. Luckily, I'm not one that has had that happen yet, but it could happen eventually. But so TechFoul is basically the biggest thing that could happen on a court where you get sent off and you basically have to sit down for 5 minutes or get ejected completely. And tech obviously relates to technical industry. So that's how we sort of came up with the name.
So the project mainly focuses on professional Dota 2 games. So Dota 2, it's an e-sport, 5-on-5, pool of 120 heroes. You line up, you verse each other, you battle, you get stronger, you try and destroy the other team's base, or you make them surrender. So how the story began. So I've been following the professional Dota scene since about TI8. And for those of you wondering, TI stands for the International. So every year, they follow a circuit, they play professional tournaments, and at the end, they have a big tournament, and over 2 weeks, the winner walks away like multi-millionaire. So there's a bit of coin to be spent on this. And so where this comes in, so there's professional stats, but you've got to pay for them. And so I had a good month from the Reese NRL tipping, and they gave me a card. So this is actually paid for indirectly by Reese. So thanks for the support on that one. And so this is our server architecture diagram. There's a lot of moving parts, but thanks to Holberton, we're able to build something that's not very janky, works, and we got something to show for you today. I was mainly doing the back end, which is just pretty much the top left half or top part of the map. And so with this, there's a lot of data we got to get, and there's two main sources. This one was paid for, and this one I use Python automation every 15 minutes to get upcoming games, and it's the start of the whole process. And so with this, two main parts is, so the spider is just a web crawler, goes on the same website every 15 minutes and gets the same information or updated information. And with that, I'm able to store it into my database and then use that to generate the rest of the statistics for it as well. And now, once I have it in, I've got to get it out so these two can both work on it. And to do that, we use Node with Sequelize and Mongoose. Sequelize is very rigid in how everything is, and Mongoose is a lot more flexible. We can change data how we want it as well.
Yes, so continuing on with what Luke said about Mongoose, I was working on the single match page, so that's sort of like this area down here, including the Mongo database there. Now you can see here on the left, that's an example of how the information is stored in the Mongo database. And as Luke said, we use Mongoose to get that information out, try and interpret it in a way that we could then go on to use later on. So this is what's called a skimmer. We then use EJS to get the information out of that and then present it to the user on our website at the end. Now on top of all of this as well, I did a couple of odds and ends. I came up with the logo and that sort of thing, and worked on a couple of the charts on our single match page too.
So where we're arriving now is the MySQL database. So this is where Luke again built all the database for the information that we're going to display on the homepage. So we'll get into that now. So all that stuff on the left side, Luke had built. So it's just basically the MySQL database. We use Sequelize to then send that data across to a templating system, which we used EJS to then display that onto our homepage. So we're just going to show you a live demo now of our presentation. Just ready beforehand.
Hopefully it works.
Fingers crossed.
Otherwise the door's there, so we just run.
Got a reminder that I've got to do a Holberton presentation today.
Oh, funny about that. Now this is what the user is going to see straight away. This is our homepage. What we have on the left and the right are the side of verses. the team names in each match, and you can see in the middle where it says BO3, that's a style of series it is, so that would be best of 3. We've got the start time for the match. We've even got light and dark mode. The reason why we actually wanted to integrate something like light and dark mode is to make it a bit easier and more accessible for every kind of user. What Dylan's going to demonstrate now is we actually even tried to take into consideration people who've got, say, compromised vision, people who aren't able to see certain colours. So we tried to pick a colour scheme, or a scheme for the entire website, based upon what would be easily visible to the most people, just to try and make it more accessible. Now this is the single match page, and you can see this is where we've got our statistics and some of our charts as well. The reason why we chose these particular statistics are because we thought they were most fundamental to helping a user of TechFoul try and determine who the winner of a particular match might be. We found out that when people have the confidence to do something like predict a match, well, their interest in the particular thing that they're trying to predict, it increases, and that's why we've completed this project here. We want to try and raise awareness and interest in Dota 2 and try and make it more accessible to the average, well, fan or potential fan. This information is not easy to come by, and it's scattered all over the web, so we tried to just get it, what was most fundamental, put it in one place, make it easy to understand, and bring as many people into the fold as we could.
Excellent put. Well done.
Thank you very much.
All right, so the next slide we're going to be talking about is project management. So basically everything that we used tools-wise to actually build this project and discuss with each other. So on the left we've got Slack, so that was basically used for our morning stand-ups, everything from talking to each other, screaming at each other when something broke, not sure what's going on, talking to each other, basically the whole thing. So, and Trello was what we used essentially for actually creating our tasks. So a bit more on the side of what we're actually up to, what we're going to be doing, and actually having step-by-step instructions for each task that we're going to be building.
Now, as any fantastic team full of geniuses will tell you, you're going to encounter a number of challenges no matter how good you are. And I've circled working as a team, not because we found it particularly difficult, but because we knew from the outset that that could potentially be the hardest challenge that we face. And I think because we were aware of that, it wasn't a challenge at all. We were quite open to speaking with each other regularly about what each of us needed. If ever there was a problem, if somebody couldn't do something, if somebody, say, had work, or they weren't well, something came up, the rest of us would jump into the fold to try and help keep the team going and keep everything moving along smoothly. On top of that, things that might be elementary, like learning to use new technology and libraries. I know that heading into this project, Luke knew a fair bit more about some of the technology that we use, but Dylan and I had to come to terms with some of the things like Bootstrap, Mongoose, MongoDB, all sorts of things. On top of that, within MongoDB, you've got this schema that needs to be changed if you're going to display new things. It's only a small matter, but you've got to remember to do it or else things won't work properly. And then, of course, the most important thing, we've got to remember to pay Jonathan for keeping quiet about doing our entire project for us. But don't tell anybody.
And so the future of the project, definitely more features to add. Single team pages, league pages, filtering on that, adding more usability so they can save their favorite teams and track them easier. And obviously, with like this large stream of data, machine learning is probably the next best thing to provide more in-depth predictions or patterns that could be looked at as well.
And that's it.
Yeah.
I want to say a special thanks to obviously everyone who's here and attended, but also a big special thanks to Reese for sponsoring us through, both Luke and I, through this.
Yeah, it's been a good 9 months, and thanks for offering the scholarship.
Yeah, and a massive thank you to John as well, to every step of the way, you know, helping us fix our code and making us feel a lot easier about what we're going wrong with. And obviously Holberton as well, you guys have been absolutely fantastic, and the course itself has been incredible. So yeah, massive thank you to you all.
And on top of that, just before we finish, I'd like to extra special thanks to OnePoint for helping me study this course. Without their support, I wouldn't have been able to take the course on. Thanks to Emmanuel and to Julie for her help too. I think Siam, who's not here today, but Siam helped when Jonathan was away. She was wonderful. And I guess all of our fellow students have just been lovely to talk to, always helpful, always wanting to have a laugh and chat. It's just been a wonderful place to learn for 9 months. We're going to miss you all.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. Any questions? Matt.
Why did you choose MongoDB as your database schema, or as your database driver? Why not something else?
You dealt with it.
Well, it was actually on a suggestion from Luke because I'd not heard of MongoDB before, but it was to do with the kind of information that we were dealing with. Certain things, they fit quite well into an SQL database, but for Mongo we had to use, or we wanted to use nested information. So for example, you'd have a match. The idea of the match would be a particular bit of information. Within that, you'd have two teams. Within those two teams, they'd have all their separate statistics. And we found that on MongoDB, it was much easier to handle that kind of information rather than trying to use SQL for it. I think it's possible in SQL.
It is possible, but there's a lot less joins. You just have to search one object instead of every object and writing heaps more joins for it.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. Really impressive. Just talk a little bit about how much time you spent doing the program management stuff. You know, aligning on the tasks, making sure that the tasks were defined in the right level of detail. So planning versus execution. What does that look like?
I remember I spent quite a bit of time with like CM. She when we first started the project, it was pretty much just like going guns blazing, but then she like spoke us back from that. She was like, if you spend a lot of time now, there's going to be a lot less headaches later on. So she goes, think about it properly, try and work it out as best you can, because you might not have the right answer at the time, but like you'll build everything else really well, and then you'll just find something that fits that.
And we still made mistakes along the way too. Sometimes we would just forget to check what it was that we were trying to manage, and then we'd find it a week later, oh, that's right, there was something there. So we had to get into the habit of trying to check things regularly, work out what was going on, and make sure that things were manageable as well. I think at the beginning we had a couple of big things that were just single items that were going to take a long time, and we had to break it up into little tasks. Things like that.
Yeah. Takers?
What did you guys get your website hosted on? And did you find any challenges in relation to setting that up?
It's not actually currently hosted on anything.
No. So
Shut up, Declan.
all the data is stored on like a personal computer that I have at home, so they're accessing that remotely. There was a big issue because I moved down to Melbourne during the final project, so that came with me. So these two were without that for about a week or so. So we had to like work out on some supplementary data during that.
It worked quite well though, didn't it?
Yeah.
The way we set that up. Yeah.
Wilson?
Yeah, so when you're working as a team, like, do you feel any difference or challenges between your work remotely, like from anywhere, and working in person?
I think it wasn't too bad, because I think throughout the entire time at Holberton, we've all sort of spent that pretty much the whole time, remotely. There'll be the odd day here and there where we'd come in and stuff, but we all sort of got used to working together remotely and working on these projects together, remotely. So I don't think it was much had really changed. Really, we were still just doing everything we'd been doing throughout the course.
We were quite vocal on like Slack as well for like where we were at or if we were having any issues. I remember Dylan goes, just can't get this. He logged off for the day. I popped in, managed to try and work out what he was doing, and then helped him let him know. And then we spoke about it the next day.
Yeah.
First of all, lovely outfit, Hamish.
I missed the dress code today.
My question is about accessibility, which you guys talked about a little bit. What were the challenges you faced with trying to, challenges if any, and if you implemented anything to try to reach WCAG standards with that?
WCAG
Yes, I might have to ask you what
standards.
WCAG standards are. Yeah.
It's the accessibility standards for web development, so I was just wondering if you guys touched on that.
Well, clearly we didn't research it.
Yeah. So we're not as professional as we seem.
But we mainly wanted to obviously give everybody access. Anyone who has, because obviously I'm blind as a bat without my contacts, so kind of wanted to give everybody that access to being able to, access our website and not really.
I'm asking because I personally have to do it, and it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's hard to reach those WCAG standards across different browsers, different OSs. So yeah, I just wanted to give that what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think more to the point, we chose those specific colors to try and, with all those types of games as well. You've always got the red versus blue or those sort of colors mainly. So we wanted to try and stick to some sort of variant of that color. But we also tied in obviously the light and dark mode as well, just so that you know, if we had any issues with somebody not being able to, you know, see it in that dark mode or wanted a preference of something else, we had another option there for them. But yeah, we hadn't really looked into any. I haven't even heard about any WS.
No, I mean,
I guess that's the next step, eh?
and I think the way we probably went about things, I mean, it's going to sound quite basic, but we just looked at it and said, can you see that colour? Does the graph disappear with this particular setting? And if it did, well, then we tried to change it. It was really, for us, a sense of trial and error, so you could at least see the difference between certain things, or you could discern that, all right, that's the edge of a table. That's information in the table. That's one part of the graph. So it's not an exact science as far as we were concerned, but quite clearly it ought to have been. Jed.
The light-dark mode seems like quite simple because it's on a lot of websites or a lot of options these days, but I imagine it's quite difficult to actually do. How did you go with doing that, and what were the challenges?
We don't talk about light and dark. No, it was very, I think it was a big struggle for me. I sort of took the front in trying to develop that. And Luke, it was where that came in, you know, with jumping on Slack. I sort of just said, I can't figure out what the hell I'm doing wrong. He jumped in, looked at the code and managed to figure it out, and we discussed it. And we got it all working, which was fantastic. And it's like, you know, it's such a simple thing. You wouldn't think it would be so hard to implement. And then implementing it again on another page isn't as simple as just copy and pasting. You have to then also build it for that page as well. So as much as it looks very easy, switching between classes and getting it all to work how you want it to doesn't always necessarily come up straight away.
Yes, Lee?
So when you crawl the data from the source, like have you think about one day, like if you crawl too often, it will block IP? Or like, you know, what if you know, they change the layout or they change the structure of the page?
Yeah.
Like, do you have to get any notification if the data is wrong?
So that's probably one of like my big fears. If they block my IP, then I look at have to like setting up proxies for it as well. If the data changes, I mean, like it's just not going to appear. Nothing's going to go into the database because it's not the right type. So that's further like research that I have to look into. I was looking for APIs to like fix that fact, but it's just an issue that they don't exist yet in like the Dota API. So I like have to like work on something else. It's only meant to only be temporary until I can find a proper API source.
Oh, yeah.
I've used some AI tools to support the development, such as ChatGPT or Copilot or this kind of tool. And if yes, did it help you and was it more efficient? And any feedback related to these tools in the everyday support?
I think I recall, did you mention earlier on there was something that you were stuck on?
Yes.
And it was trying to overcome. What was that though? Was it in the early stages of the light and dark mode?
I think it was, yeah, I think it was actually the light and dark mode toggle button. I used ChatGPT a little bit to help me sort of get a start on it and then understand what I was trying to do. More of just because I've never done anything like that before, and sort of just trying to get a ground base to sort of go from, and then build off that with everything we've sort of studied about. But yeah, I'd even recommend it to Hamish as well, for if he was stuck on anything, to try and use ChatGPT, especially for the front end. If it feels it's got a lot of knowledge and assistance with it. Obviously, you can't get a definite answer of what you want, but it gives you a basis to sort of work off and sort of debug, I guess. It gives you a starting point, sort of thing.
Anybody else? Well, actually, I think two people. Did we thank Jed and Adam? I don't think we thanked Jed and Adam as well in our thanks before.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the beers.